All right. We're coming in. Easing in, yes?
Hello.
Yeah.
Ease being the key word. This isn't some great exaltation, not some explosion, but it's a relaxation. And so this is the same process. We want you to be able to maintain as much as you can, but it's always it's always a balance between setting the intention and then just letting go. Setting the intention and letting go. Maintaining the intention, letting go, and then the stuff that comes up in the middle, it's good because it's showing you that you're not quite clear yet. You're not quite there yet. There's still a little bit of work to do, and that's what we're here to do. To build the momentum so that as you go forward, you recognize it. When you're faced with a choice and you don't know which way to go, you know what the energy feels like. You know what your inner energy is directing you toward. You know what your inner guidance is speaking to you, where it's leading you. And then you just refine it. Then each word, each thought, each breath becomes a habit. And the work again is just to let go of the places where that energy has not been flowing. So, what's coming up here?
Well, I guess I don't know if I brought this up last week or not, or if I was able to articulate it well enough to understand it today. But I've had this experience of just finding that things come to me without me even necessarily asking for them. But I do. It's almost like my higher self knows what I need, and things show up as they're needed. And so, and it's and that's happened. It doesn't happen all the time. It just depends upon my receptivity, and just my own work. But that and so I feel it feels a little conflictual to be trying to do something as opposed to allowing it to come. I guess I have to allow it to come regardless, but there are times when I've noticed that I haven't had to ask for anything and yet it shows up.
But you've asked for things to flow clearly in the past. You've asked for surprises. You've asked for a connection to that inner self and the blessings it can bring to you. And that's not an intention you have to continually affirm, but it does help to reaffirm it. So if it's not flowing as easily, it's just to reaffirm that intention and continue the allowing process. So that's the sort of balancing act, again, that you're going to be playing throughout all of this. Now, we don't want you to place an intention from a place of misery, from a place of discomfort. In other words, I hate this, get me out. Because that intention is muddled with all sorts of different feeling, all sorts of different energy. And so the result in terms of what you're going to get back is going to be muddled as well. So when you have moments like that where something flows in really easily, we want you to place the intention just gently that you'd love to see more of that. You say, I really enjoyed that. Let's keep that going. And then you let it go. And then you carry on. And so when you place the intention, it's setting the energy in motion in that direction. And when you have an experience like that come up and you reaffirm it, you move that energy just a little bit more quickly. And when you really, really love it and you take that moment to really soak it in and just appreciate all of the possibilities that come with it, the energy's flowing even faster and even faster. So you're going to get more of it and more of it. And this is a good thing that it happens in this way, because if your energy was moving so incredibly quickly all the time, then you would find yourself creating in all sorts of different directions. So you're building this momentum, just putting one foot after the next in this creative process.
It's interesting because what I've noticed is that when things do show up for me, the smaller things that I don't. I have. I've put my attention on them off and on, and not even necessarily a lot of energy necessarily, but just my attention. And I've thought about those things, and then when they do show up, it's like, oh, okay, there it is. There's. It's almost like it's anticlimactic almost, you know.
We know that, and we've been using the analogy of the energetic piggy bank with you quite a bit, but we know it's as if you have that empty piggy bank and you wish you had enough to really afford, and it feels so expansive. But as you're going step by step, when you add the last sort of coin in to have enough currency to make the purchase, it doesn't feel so exaggerated. And so it's all about finding your balance. You can have the drama, you can have that intense intention that has tons of energy flowing, and have all of that resistance, and then have this extraordinary moment where you let it go and the energy floods in and the experience comes quickly and amazingly to you. You could have that. But in terms of day-to-day life, we think it's very much possible for you to continue to see your next step, your next step, your next step, and then the drama becomes less because the expectation is there that the next steps are going to more easily flow to you. So again, you get to sort of decide, you get to determine your relationship within all this. And we know we've spoken to you of sort of that creative freedom within all of this. If you like that extraordinary experience, then take what we just said and amplify it and do it to the extreme. In other words, place that intention, place it strongly, place it with every fiber of your being pulsing forward. But we think that you already have those moments throughout the day. We think you have those moments popping in, popping in, popping in, popping in, building the momentum, building the momentum. And just going with that, we, in our approach, is creating more of a lifestyle. It's more of a sustained, continual unfolding rather than these peaks and valleys that many equate with excitement. Well, you can have the best of all of that without needing those extreme sort of drops.
Yeah, I do have those moments where things get very exciting when I think about the future and retirement and what I want for that, and I can put a lot of juice into it, and it can be very exciting, and I let it go, and I guess and also at the same time it's a little like, okay, universe, we're you know we're, what do I do now? So it's just it's like it's letting go. I have to practice letting go.
And
And
that question is powerful. What can I do now? Not saying why hasn't it come yet? Not saying where the heck is it? Not saying I'm miserable because I don't have it yet, just asking what's next. And that lighter sort of open question, that's the difference between those 2 points that we're talking about, all the stuff that comes up in the middle. You shorten that gap by asking those lighter questions. And then you just stay open. And when something catches your eye, even if it's seemingly unrelated to what you think you're intending here, something catches your eye that reminds you of that feeling. We want you to take note of the feeling there, because that's where your next step is. It may seem off on a side road. It may be wandering into a back alley. It may be calling a friend out of the blue. But when you feel that glimmer, when it hooks you, and it feels the same way that visualization or that intention has been feeling, that's an indication that your next step is right there. Now, that doesn't mean that that next step is the last step. It's just the next step. So follow that intuition and that understanding, and it will take you forward down that path.
yes, okay.
What else is coming up here for anyone? We have you here, Angela. Yes.
hmm I guess I've been thinking a little bit more about the creative process recently, and embarking on uh, a journey to discover my own uh, creative aspects of self. So, does Joseph have anything to offer in terms of beginning that journey and as a means of sort of self exploration and divine expression, even?
So that's the intention, yes? It's not just any sort of expression because or any sort of creation, because your thoughts are creative. You know this, you experience them in vivid form, they become alive to you. But what's in a thought? When you say that you're wanting divine exploration or divine creation here, you see all of your thoughts there, and all thought is an endless tapestry. That's the creative sort of nature here. Now, the question is, which thoughts do you want to incorporate into your experience? And that's what this process that we're talking about is all about. So think of your thoughts all spread out for you like stars in the sky. They're all connected in some way or another. They may seem disconnected, but they're all sort of out there. And they're beautiful, and some are very far away and some are closer, but they're all sort of visible to you. And when you place that intention, refining it down, refining the intention, not just to be creative, as you said, but divinely inspired, if you would, and you hold that intention, then from all of those possibilities, all of the different thoughts, you'll start to recognize patterns. You'll start to recognize what you would call constellations. You'll start to recognize patterns within all of the sort of infinite potential. And we don't want you to feel lost in the infinite potential. But when you start to explore the thoughts, we think because you're looking at an infinitely expanding amount of information and energy, it's nice to have a roadmap and it's nice to have a guide. And you have that within yourself. So, how does that all come together? When you can find, and it's growing within you here, we want you to relax and feel within to yourself. When you can find and nurture and allow that clear connection with your own inner energy and stabilize there, then it's not about looking outside of yourself for the thoughts that are going to be the right thoughts, but it's about maintaining that consistent connection and then recognizing which of those thoughts light up. In the same way we were just speaking, when you have that intention and you notice something within your life that starts to glimmer and feel like that intention, that's the recognition that it's your next step. The same is true within your own mind, that you have all of the different thoughts that you're having throughout the day, and you get to decide what do you want to get from all of that. Now, we'll ask you here because we want you, as we were speaking of before, to reinforce the intention to continue to get that energy flowing. So you gave us a broad statement and we want you to give it to us again, but find what is lighting up the most from it and we can enhance that. Hmm.
Are you hoping for me to be more specific?
As so
Or
say
you
that statement, repeat that statement, but how whatever is flowing from you and just recognize what's the brightest light within that, and that's what we're going to enhance here in this conversation.
okay. Um, I think, uh, well, I think I know what's more of a dimming light. Maybe I should more consciously steer away from that, because I think there's a lot of self-doubt that I'm experiencing in the process, but also the for instance, in writing poetry, like the act of having written something is also very exciting. So I do want to go with that, but it was interesting for you to say, say your piece about the thoughts that light up and finding patterns within those, and so only paying particular attention to the ones that have that shimmering feeling, and maybe that's it, because it is a whole yeah, universe of, sky full of stars in different ways, to different stars to draw from. But that's helpful. But that was helpful to hear
So you
about.
gave us a few different ideas there. Yes, you gave us some self-doubt. You gave us some a little interest in our analogy, and then you said that in the written word you felt a spark and you felt excitement in
Yes.
getting the pen to paper and seeing that. So now let's continue to refine this intention. So that was bright to you. Now take that brilliance, take that approach, take that idea, and just speak to us a sentence or two expressing it. And we'll continue this refinement process to show you how we're taking an idea and refining it into an intention that's going to really catapult you forward. So when I put the pen to paper, I felt that jolt, I felt that excitement.
When I read what I had written, I wondered what else I could come up with, and what's stopping me from having done this all this time, and yeah.
We want you to really go there because you're sort of giving us just a little crumb, just a little taste of
Yeah.
the energy, and it's not something to be experienced in the far off future. We're not going to give you a path and you'll feel the energy down that way eventually. We're really wanting you to open yourself up to your own experience of your own thoughts so that as they come forward, we can really take that essence and amplify it. So, what about that experience lit you up?
um that I have that I could potentially claim the title of an artist, and how do I become that?
Ah, that's an energy, yes?
Sure.
So, that's, in other words, claim that title. This entire sort of conversation has been climbing up that mountain, and we got to the very top, and that's the essence here. So let's take that and let's flesh it out. Let's make it real to you right here, right now, so that you can, from this constellation of possibility, bring those things that match the artistry that you're wanting to describe. So, the essence of that, what about that artistry calls you forward and is an intention or a desire or even a wish for you here?
I think it would be, um a I think it's important for me to express myself in some way that I could then look back, reflect, and refine, and show myself that I have, you know, some intellect, some sometimes I lose my well, I'm losing my thoughts now, but
That's a good thing.
can you ask me again?
Yes.
How?
And it's all right for your thoughts to shift and change because you're being open to this process. We'd much rather you have a blank mind for a moment than have a rigid approach that you feel that you need to accomplish. So when you're keeping it open, you're keeping it light, that's one side of the equation. And that's very, 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 very valuable. The other side of the equation is the intention.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we're trying to get you to, that's what we're working here to refine and to focus so that you can continue to have that openness throughout the day, but you're being moved through it with a very clear intention. So
I want to have a beautiful offering to share with, the people that I love, and the people who also inspire me, because I'm surrounded by so many artists. So it's about having been inspired and having something to offer. That also makes me feel good.
a give and take, the inspiration is coming in, it's filling you up, it's overflowing, you're sharing the gift with others. Why else do you want this experience?
Because I think I deserve to find out what my art would look like. I've never considered myself an artist, but I think that we all are, and that we all have, you know, so much inside of us that could be so beautifully expressed other than the traditional conversation, or ways of communicating. So um, and just a need to refine the chaos and create beauty in a really dark and destructive time.
And so we'll call that the sort of frame here. That's the frame that you're going to place this artwork in, that is the intention. Now that you've framed it, now that you have the context for it, we want you to pay attention to the words that you used here because there was a little bit of everything. And when we spoke earlier of not placing an intention from a place of strife or discomfort, because then you're going to carry those energies into your creation. And then what you're offering to other people is a little bit of inspiration and a little discomfort. We want you to refine that even here. That's really why we're having this conversation. You see this sort of refinement process here. And so, in the same way, you have that slab of marble or that blob of clay, and you're taking bits away, bits away, bits away. That's what you're doing here in this conversation. You've offered to us something very broad, and then you've refined it, and then you've refined it. And in the last sort of iteration, you wanted to bring light to a dark place. And we want you to see that contrast between the two choices, and we want to go with the light because we're assuming that that's what you want to create.
Yes.
You don't want to create clarity and confusion. You don't want to create joy and misery. We know that you want from that one particular outcome. So that's what we're going to ask you to focus on here with us just a little bit more so we can refine it and get that energy flowing. Because whatever you're nurturing, that's what you're going to see more of. And of course, it's going to flow into that frame of this life experience where there is all of that which you're describing going on. But we want you to get really clear about what you intend to offer because that is what you will offer. So take the best of that, take the brightest part of what you just spoke and sort of reformulate that here, even brighter than before.
I think it's about bringing forth a sort of forgotten or unknown identity of mine.
Tell us about this identity. What does it mean? Why does it light up? Why did that grow within you?
Because I think I've always denied my own curiosity of, exploring that.
But we want to just stop you here because we want to put this into context a little bit. Because we're asking you to highlight the brilliance and the excitement, and you're still giving us a little from both columns. And that's what your creation is going to show back to you, a little bit of both. We want
Yeah.
to focus it here. So see if you can sort of rephrase that in a way that leaves what used to be out of the equation and starts to enhance what you're looking forward to.
Okay.
So, an identity, artistic, creativity, something that you know you deserve. Tell us more. And if it helps, we want you to imagine that each phrase that you speak to us here will become your experience, let's say, a week from now. So if you're talking to us about not feeling comfortable in your own skin, we want you to recognize that as, let's say, manifesting a week from now. So you would not give us that part.
Hmm. I want to be I want to become, a writer and reader of my poetry, original poetry.
It's a powerful intention. Is it evoking any emotion from you as you let it settle?
Satisfaction.
It's a good indication which way the direction of the energy is flowing. So that's when we say, give us more. When you recognize that, when you have that clear intent and you feel the resonance of that, that's when we say, now let's get some energy flowing. Now let's get things in motion. So, satisfaction. Tell us more.
Um, I would say relief and sort of like yeah, maybe a release of um, like a letting down of floodgates is an imagery, drawing upon a well, opening up possibilities, nurturing, planting seeds, nurturing a garden, those sort of things.
And so, this is the process. You see, it's all happening energetically. But when we refined it down to that really clear intention, that's when energy continues to flow. And that energy is being represented to you as these images. Now, given enough time, given enough breathing room, given enough nurturing, the inner images will translate into your physical experience. So it's a very good thing that you're receiving this inspiration here. It means you're on the right track. And we know you can start to feel it growing within you. The more you give yourself permission to fully feel it in this moment, the more mature that process will become. The more developed, the more rhythm, the more momentum, the more creativity, the more flow, the more speed. So you take it step by step. You take it breath by breath, and you take it idea by idea as you're moving forward. So take a moment and just sort of breathe fully in, because this energy that you're feeling is a doorway to the next step.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Everything happens in the mind, but where does action come into all of this? we're talking about creating, and yet at what point do you start creating and allowing yourself to experience the fruits of those moments and using that energy to add to the mental creation and the excitement.
So fruit is a perfect analogy here, and you pick the fruit when it's ripe. And the same is true with your creation. We want you to be oriented in this intention, in the energy enough that you can get the momentum going, get the momentum going. And then when you see something show up for you that glimmers and shines just the way this inner energy felt, that's when you take action. So when we were speaking to you before of keeping your eyes open, keeping your experience open, keeping your mind open as you're going throughout the day, and recognizing those glimmers that feel just like those moments of inspiration feel, that's when we want you to take action. And even if that action is just taking one step closer, that's all that you need to do, because it's one step at a time. And if you take a few steps forward and then feel yourself running into an obstacle, you take a moment and you just sort of reconnect with this inner energy. And then you'll be able to move forward. And that's what we're calling in terms of shifting energy here, shifting and changing belief. It's a necessary process because you still have barriers within yourself to that experience, or else it would be coming swiftly into your experience. And in fact, it is coming swiftly into your experience. It's just running into the places that are still standing in the way. And as we're speaking to Angela here of wanting to refine that so you don't have a little bit of this and a little bit of that in terms of what you're broadcasting, that's the work, and that's how you recognize the next step. And when you get clear, when you get aligned, when you get consistent, when you get tuned in within yourself, then everything else starts to fade away. And that's when those opportunities become more discernible to you. And they'll show up coming from all different directions here. So, Angela, here as you're relaxing into and breathing this fresh intention that you've set, and you're letting it grow and you're letting it come up into the mind, we feel it on the verge of wanting to express through you. So don't try to think your way there. Just take a deep breath here, and in the same way that the words flow easily from you to the paper, we want you to allow them to easily flow through your mouth here. Speak that inspiration now to us.
Well, I guess that um, what came to me were maybe themes to start writing on. Sort of like the imagery that kept coming up as you were speaking about, sort of like um, shimmering or I don't know why that keeps coming up, but it made me think of those experiences of my life from which I have, you know, distinct memory, or memories that are sort of like have a shimmering glow, and something that I can speak deeply from experience, and to go to those and write about them, places where all of my senses were engaged. So I guess the
Yes.
inspiration was thinking about different themes to go ahead and begin with that I already have a lot of reference for.
And that was clarity, yes? That was very clear what you just gave to us. And that
Mm-hmm.
came from within. It was inspiration, it was ideas, it was in terms of how to move forward. All of those specifics are wonderful. It's not about how to develop that. It's the fact that you're connected with that inner energy and you gave something very pristine and very attractive there energetically. And so when you have that clarity and you keep refining it, it's going to refine even more, because then you're going to go from themes. And as you just run with that and you let those ideas play through your mind and you let yourself feel that satisfaction and that contentment that comes from that connection, then out of all of those themes, and they're all very good themes, something will light up, or a few things will light up, especially. And that's when you refine the process even more. And you recognize, out of these 10 ideas that I've had, a few of them are lighting up. Then you take those few and you just experience and appreciate them. Expreciate, yes, here. We're going to coin that as the next term. And as you do so, you're refining the process. But we want you to know something else is happening here that's very important. Not only are you refining these ideas within your mind, but this very process of allowing the glimmer to lead you to more glimmer, to more glimmer, to more sparkle, if you would, you're emitting an energy throughout all of that. And so it's not just about this inner process that is happening, but we want you to also know it's so valuable because you're attracting more of that from your environment, from within your own mind, from your experience, from your future experience, from the value that others can bring to you, the value that you can bring to others. It's all arranged and orchestrated by a consistent energy. And so at the beginning of this, when you gave us a bunch of different energies, we think that that would be clearly reflected in your life experience. But as you continue this process, following the glimmer, following the energy, you keep refining the idea, you keep refining this inner process, and the energy moves faster and faster. And you know that the energy is moving faster and faster because you feel your own state. You could call it emotional state, you could call it state of being, keying up, refining up, increasing. So you have that awareness within your body, you have that barometer, you have that scale within the body, letting you know how this process is refining. And then if you feel yourself kind of go off in the other direction for a moment, that's okay. But it's an opportunity to reassess. It's an opportunity to reassess. And soon, and we want you to really tune in here because we're speaking to your future self with this as well. Soon, all of the things that seemed so big and so far away, as those come to your experience, you'll notice that the subtle refinements of thought that you're accomplishing here, those will become your future experience. And then you'll have choices there that previously would have seemed like an absolute dream for you. In other words, do I write the book that they're demanding, or do I write the poetry that they're demanding? And that will be a legitimate conflict within yourself. But you see how from where you are now, it seems like subtle refinement. But when you're there, it seems exaggerated. But you're continuing to refine it. And so then from that place, you'll have greater intentions that are coming. We call this an eternal process. We call this your eternal self, because when you're doing this work, it's not about if, it's about when and how and what you're creating through the process. So you have this, yes, you have the refinement. You feel that distinction. Different states of energy. They're going to carry forward into different experiences you get to choose here.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
Who else is wanting to speak here? We have you here.
I'm feeling into what might be there for me. Uh, I just, sometimes for me, I just have this wonderful excitement about the future, and sometimes that just is. I don't have any pictures with it. It's just energy that I feel, and I can apply it to my future. I can apply it to right now. I can just apply it to the planet and ask that it be healing energy for the planet. You know, I I don't know. I do a lot. I mean, I just do a lot with that energy. It's not always just trying to create something with it. It's uh, it's enjoying it.
Indeed. And when you're saying that you're going to apply it, we also want you to know that it's going to apply itself. That when you're enjoying that energy and you're letting it grow and expand and refine in this moment, the ways and the means for you to express it will be drawn to you. That's the power of the process. That's what we're talking about in terms of action and knowing when you're ready for the action.
So what I heard in that was that the energy has an intelligence of its own, and it's going to bring to me what it is that I require.
And that which you'll enjoy, and that which you'll require for enjoyment. It's going to bring all of the bits and pieces together, and then some. And then aspects of it that you hadn't even consciously considered. And that's why we say you can't. We don't recommend that you try to consciously get it all figured out, because there are so many aspects, so many pieces that you just can't wrap your mind around. And in fact, many times when you're trying to wrap your mind around all of the different aspects, it's a form of trying to exert some kind of control that, first of all, you don't need to. Second of all, you really cannot. And that's when the feeling of being overwhelmed comes in. That's where feelings of not having power come in, because you're trying to do things that you can, or figure things out that you cannot do or figure out. And when you're letting it go and letting it flow, when that step is ready for you to take, it's going to be right there. When that apple is ready for you or that fruit is ready for you, you'll know. It will be fragrant. You'll recognize it.
I have two options. I can move. I have I can stay where I am. I have three options. I can stay where I am. I can move to two different places in the United States, two cities that I have connections with, and but nothing is moving. Nothing in this moment is moving. I don't feel pulled to either of them, and so I'm in this kind of limbo, and I'm okay with it. And it's always a kind of sense of wondering, where am I going to end up? Where do I want to be? And I don't. I can be content here, but it's not quite enough. It's not offering me exactly what it is that I feel like I need for my own growth and my own just happiness, and joy. And um, so it's hard to refine what it is that I want, other than to know where to go with all this and how to put it into a, a, add some momentum to it, so that it starts to move for me. And then I think, well, maybe it's not supposed to move right now. Maybe I'm waiting on the world. Maybe there's so much going on. Maybe timing just isn't there. And so nothing's going to move until the timing is right.
So you'll like this very much. This is one of our most practical processes, and you can apply it to anything. So if you're feeling all right and you're looking at options and neither of them are really energizing you or calling you forward, we want you to drop all that and we want you to talk about what you want to experience. We want you to get into what it is about moving that you even want in the first place. And we don't want you to bring anything to do with either of those places or any other place for that matter. We want you to stay in this moment and start to speak those words to yourself. I'd really like a place where I can have fresh air and feel stimulated and be interested. And if that's as far as you can get, then that's okay, and you stop there. And then you start to put yourself into the shoes of where you'd like to be. You can imagine it as specific as you can get in that experience. You imagine yourself waking up and getting out of bed and looking around you. And what is it that you see? What do you feel? What do you smell? What is the first thing that you do when you get up in the morning? Are you making coffee? Are you making tea? Are you making a bit of breakfast? What does your kitchen look like? What does the sun look like as it's coming in the morning? What do you smell as you open the window? And we want you to get so intimate with this vision that it brings tears to your eyes. We want you to get so familiar with it that you have goosebumps rippling up and down your body, just as Aaron has here, by the mere thought of it. And you goose that up and you enhance that and you make it real and you flesh it out. And then what are you doing? And how are you feeling? And who are you calling? And what does this remind you of? And what kind of art do you have on the walls? And you notice that in this conversation, it has nothing to do with any specific outcome. It has nothing to do with any particular location. And you become so familiar with that vision. You become so acquainted with it that it becomes second nature to you. And that is when you look at the different possibilities and you see which one aligns with that. And if no possibility in this moment align with that vision, then you go back to the vision and you focus there a little bit more. That's how we recommend making any choice that you are unsure of. Any sort of fork in the road where you can't see the end of the different paths and you know you need to make a choice. You find the essence of where you want to be. You don't just find it. You don't just sort of think, I'd like to live somewhere nice and then leave it at that. You go there and you stay there and you notice how you feel in the body and you notice what kind of thoughts you're having and you notice the essence of that, and then you look for that essence in all things, and when you find it, there will be no denying it as long as you've practiced it. But if you haven't practiced it and you're expecting those places to inspire you, then you can have the place right in your face that resonates with that energy and not even notice it because you don't have familiarity with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to build the familiarity. You have to build that essence. You have to resonate.
Right. And that familiarity may not even be within those two cities.
Exactly.
It may be somewhere else that's going to show up that's congruent with my vision.
Exactly. And in fact, because you have gone into this state and you've gone into this place within your own inner mind and inner being and inner self, you will attract that to you. That's why we say you don't even need to apply it. It will apply itself. And so those ideas must be drawn to you. Those steps must be drawn to you. They will be drawn to you. And here's what we want you to know as well. Like you said, it's not about choosing from choice A or B. It's being open to the recognition. So new ideas will start to come to you so that you'll recognize an aspect of it. It could be something as simple as a tea kettle that you see, and it reminds you of that inner vision. And you say, I would like to have that red tea kettle. That's part of my kitchen that I've been envisioning. But we want you to take each step as they come and to relish and enjoy each little glimmer that's being drawn to you, because these are like breadcrumbs leading you on your path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when the opportunity is there, it's going to feel just like that inner energy felt, and you'll be jumping for it because you'll know that it's ready, that it's right, that you've practiced it, and then you can flow easily into that experience.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it has to come to you if you're practicing that energy.
Yeah. 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 You know, the most energy that arises for me is when I think about calling in a new beloved. And that's exciting. That is very exciting. And the energy is just my heart just blows open. And when I think about that, and so it's really it's going along with what you said. it doesn't matter where I am for that to happen. If it's going to happen here, it's going to happen here, it's going to happen somewhere else.
It must.
It must. Mm-hmm. And does the intensity of the energy, does that make it happen faster, do you think?
It does. But it works both ways. So if you're just focusing on intensity of energy and ignoring whether you're enjoying the intensity of that energy, you see, because there are many who are willing to strive and suffer and force themselves through the muck, not realizing that the intensity of misery that they're feeling is not leading them to a happy ending in that sense. So that's why we say pay attention to the feeling. If it feels wonderful, you know what to do. Add more fuel to the fire. And the more intense that energy feels, the more quickly it's coming into manifestation, into your experience. And that's why we want you to appreciate all the little breadcrumbs you're finding along the path, because when we speak to you of an energetic piggy bank, that's what you're doing. You're taking this idea and you're adding it there. You're taking this inspiration and it's another component. It's another idea. You see someone pass you on the street and they smile at you and you make that connection and your heart opens and is energized. We know if you were to chase that one and say, hey, you made me feel this way, let's run off together, we know in that process you would likely feel sort of a gripping start to come. And we say, pay attention to the feeling. Take it for what it is. Take that appreciation and that enjoyment and say, I really like someone looking at me like that. I really like having that moment of connection with another person. And you've just added a little bit more to that vision. If we're talking about creating a sculpture and you're taking it out of marble here, that just means you've had an inspiration. You've carved just a little bit more. You've carved just a little bit more. So you don't want to take this half finished sculpture and present it and say, you get the picture, you know what it is. You're continuing to refine it. You're refining 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 it. And it continues to develop and sometimes even surprise you in the development process. And before you know it, you'll be so far into this development, you see. And as we were speaking to Angela here, then the contrast is so refined. In other words, you're just adding a little extra detail to the eye or just a little shape behind the ear. And that to you is just as important, as just as thrilling as it was when you had the first slabs coming off of that. It's a step-by-step process, and you just take what's being given to you because the next steps are always being offered to you. They're always being offered to you. And when you continue to practice that, all you have to recognize is the next step, that glimmer of energy. It could be a word. It could be a commercial that you see on the television. It could be someone that you bump into at the grocery store. One thing is going to lead to the next. But again, just recognize the essence there because that's the connection that's continuing to take you down this path. That's your guidance throughout this process.
Yeah, yeah. I got a real sense of the process and how exciting just the process is as you were speaking. It's like just engaging in life itself.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
that's what creator is. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, we've enjoyed this conversation very much, the talking of the creative process and refining ideas and seeing how the ideas call you forward and seeing maybe sometimes there's some stuff in the way that hasn't really let that energy clearly flow. And then you recognize it and you set it aside and you say, okay, that's not my next step. And then you refine and then you have the next idea come in. And in this process of the refinement, you know it's working because you feel the energy growing and you feel the excitement calling you forward. And then you start to see the glimmers within your own mind, and the glimmers within your own mind build momentum. And then you see them start to reflect themselves within your life experience. And it could be a glimmer here or a glimmer there, but it's taking you down this creative path. And it's a good process. Yes, the creative
Yes.
process here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of the most beneficial sort of tips that you've taught me, Joseph, is the sense of making that inner energy kind of front and center. And that has taken practice for sure. But now I find that in this refining process that before I do something, not all the time, or before I'm going to have a conversation, before I'm going to have that it's more important for me to feel that energy, to get into that state of that energy, whether it's through the visioning process that you just spoke about, the feeling process that you just spoke about, or just this sense of finding that place of peace and calm. It allows me to bring that forward into my experience and create with that that magic. I don't know what else to call it. It feels like magic. I had this experience this morning where today is my mother's birthday, and she passed a couple of months ago. But you know, I was conscious that it was her birthday, and I said happy birthday to her. And I went to the window, I was washing a cup, and there's this bluebird that just landed, a beautiful big bluebird, just a real fluffy bluebird. And it just sat there on the branch and looked at me. It was probably for about 4 minutes. We had this sort of exchange. And I'm not saying my mother was in that bluebird, but what I'm saying is I felt like there was this waving at me, like, hey, this wink from source, but my mother with source, you know. It was kind of this really powerful connection that I had. And it was beautiful. And I felt like maybe I wouldn't have been aware of that if I hadn't been in tune with this eternal self energy.
We want you to know that that is a beautiful moment, and it is a recognition of this energy, and that, of course, the consciousness travels with the energy. But we also want you to know that that is available to you at every single moment of the day. Every day.
Mm. Mm. It's a beautiful way of connecting the physical with the sort of energetic, with the subtle, with the expanded. I don't want to mess it up with words, but it just is an amazing way of experiencing life. So
It is, indeed. And we call it the eternal self because that's who you are. That's who you are at your core. That's who your mother is at her core. And when you're receptive to that energy, you recognize it in all things. And that's another glimmer along your path, showing that you're moving in that direction.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph.
Very much. We've enjoyed this conversation, and there's so much more. In other words, the shifts that you feel here, the connection that you feel here, it's queuing you up for more experiences. So recognize the feelings that have moved through you during this conversation. Recognize the energies that you felt, and if you'd like, put some words to them, because as you go forward, in other words, we've been together for some time today. So there's lots of momentum, there's lots of forward motion, and as you go forward, recognize the experiences, recognize the new ideas, recognize the conversations, recognize the bluebirds, recognize all of the things that feel the way that this connection to your inner energy feels, because that is your path that you're continuing to create, and you only have to follow it. Yes. We are complete here. Hey.
Woo-hoo. Hey,
Hey,
Aaron.
nice to see everybody.